Hush your mouth, hush your mouth. Every little thing you hear, everything you see to do. I don't know what is wrong with you. It's only shoo shoo shoo. Hey, I'm feeling to put something in your mouth.
What we gonna do right here is go back, way back, back into time.
Who that? At this point, we'd like to introduce a very promising candidate.
DJ Johnny.
Friends from Tobago, Christmas they reach in Fat Meadow with a box piece and a quattro, a violin and a banjo. They say they always had a plan to give me family a parang. They wake up my mommy right away when they ring out with this love way. My Jeffrey, oh, get up. Hey, like you were here the neighbor cock crowing, oh girl. Madam Jeffrey, oh, time to put some smoke in your kitchen, oh girl. Madam Jeffrey, oh, wake up. I hope you know it's white oak a drinking, oh girl. Madam Jeffrey, oh, get up. Mommy put coffee on the fire, encouraging them to stay a little longer. Ham and bread on the table. Why don't she pull out a bottle? The music went in my neighborhood. He pull the old sax below his bed. Come across and join the bacchanal. They wouldn't stop singing at all. My Jeffrey, oh, get up. Hey, you were here the neighbor cock crowing, oh girl. Madam Jeffrey, oh, get up, get up, get up. My Jeffrey, oh, wake up. Time to put some smoke in your kitchen, oh girl. Madam Jeffrey, oh, wake up. I hope you know it's white oak taking, oh girl.
If you see your neighbor while shopping with Trevor, hush your mouth, hush your mouth. You smell through the cake burning, same time Santa was passing. Hush your mouth, hush your mouth. Every little thing you hear, everything you see to do. I don't know what is wrong with you. It's only shoo shoo shoo. Hey, I'm feeling to put something in your mouth. I'm feeling to put something in your mouth. You're only talking, it's only running. People business is only calmness. Hey, I'm feeling to put something in your mouth. And you know what I'm talking about. Like a piece of ham, a piece of pastel, like a drink of rum, a drink of sorrel. Hey, I feel it to put something in your mouth. You know that well what I'm talking about. Oi, 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 Janet, buy new friends. and she husband they walking. Hush your mouth, hush your mouth. Your sister put up curtain for 5 years, the same old thing. Hush your mouth, hush your mouth. Every little thing you hear, everything you see do. I don't know what is wrong with you. It's only shoo. Hey, I feel it to put something in your mouth. I feel it to put something in your mouth. It's only running, only talking, people business, too much comments. I feel it to put something in your mouth, and you know what I'm talking about, like a piece of bait, a piece of sponge cake, like a drink of scotch. You just talk too much. Hey, I feel it to put something in your mouth. I sure you know what I'm talking about. I say, oi, 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 oi. You know what I mean? Oi, 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 oi.
Ah, yes, indeed. I'm feeling Christmassy tonight. But we have to be conscious. We have a task ahead of us. Yes, indeed. Yes, indeed. Of course, pleasant good night to all and sundry. This is, yes, the, but of course, as you know, the Tuesday edition of the Corridor Transformation. And of course, as per usual, we have a bumper program for you. I mean, last night was simply blown away because of the amount of information. And I'm talking about verifiable. You can sit in your bedrooms, in your studio, in your kitchen, and of course, utilizing your smartphone or your communication device, whether it be a laptop or a tablet, and certify what I have said last night. And I mean, and it was just tremendous. I know that people would have had a sort of, not a brain stroke, but certainly a brain fill. And it could only do well for all of us, because as the days reach closer to that ultimate period of elections that is inevitable in 2025, that is the maximum that Rowley can reach. And of course, having regard to all of his bad luck in attempting, of course, to undermine, subvert, and to believe that somehow he has a dictatorial, autocratic, and what I consider to be, and he believes that we can be used. So he has a utilitarian disposition. Yes, he believes he can use us. The fact of the matter is that we are brighter, we are smarter as the days go along, and as the experience come to the fore, to know clearly and definitely that Rowley and his bunch are poisoned, they are toxic, they are evil, they are wicked, and therefore must be, of course, relegated to the dustbin of political history. That being as it may, last night, of course, we looked at the whole question of integrity. We looked at the whole question, of course, hinging it to the whole the issue of the deliberateness, the conscientiousness of the Rowley administration, Rowley himself doing all that was required to hoodwink, deceive, and to, of course, generate or take a position that we are fools back, of course, in 2015. Well, I'm sure that he knows now in a major way that Trinidadians are maybe apparently complacent, but we give people a fair chance. And now that the thing has come full circle, we know that Rowley and they cannot be trusted. they must not be in office. They are Jurassic, as we described yesterday when Dr. Rowley said that he is Jurassic, and therefore that would have, of course, should I say, conditioned his decision to do what? To take away laptops and take away tablets and put our kids and our educational system and our ability to manage our own affairs or even impact on the region and the world, put us at a disadvantage, simply because he cannot use or has not used an ATM machine. It means that he is suggesting that we mustn't use it either. I mean, you cannot have a greater narcissistic individual and selfish to the core than that kind of attitude as a leader in a democratic society, in contemporary and or 21st century Trinidad and Tobago. It is just bizarre and pathetic. And therefore, when we compare that with, of course, Kamala Persad-Bissessar, since before 2015, looking at laptops and looking at the future and how Trinidad and Tobago can, of course, compete and can, of course, find its way in the maze of course, competition by nations in order to survive. We only have 1.5, but Dr. Rowley getting on as though we have, of course, 5 or 6 million people to deal with, and therefore cannot put a handle on crime, cannot put a handle on the economy, cannot negotiate well, of course, but at the same time, he believes that he can utilize our resources to, of course, wastefully engage legal, what I consider to be luminaries. Yeah, they cannot be luminaries, so I have to say illuminaries or mal-illuminaries are talking about persons who in the legal profession that have been paid handsomely by the state, by you and I, through Rowley and they, and cannot win a major case in the country, whether it be, of course, the whole question of the undermining of our democracy as far as postponing the local government elections is concerned, in spite of the fact that they have, of course, all that largesse at their disposal and all the, according to them, the best lawyers. But there is a saying, birds of feather flock together. And if Rowley and they are incompetent, then one expects that they will gravitate and that they will deploy and, of course, attract incompetence, impotence, and, of course, the inability to manage the affairs in the long run of Trinidad and Tobago. I mean, the logic is clear. What I consider to be the corollary is indisputable, and the fact of the matter is that we have that albatross that is Rowley and his minions still, of course, managing the affairs of our country. I mean, that's an irony in itself, but it is also a reality. And therefore, we need to, of course, address that in more ways than one. That being as it may, of course, let's go straight, of course, to what I want to talk about tonight and what I want to talk about. Remember, we were saying that the level of incompetence and impotence is so overwhelming, is so pervasive, is so widespread that we need, of course, to look and to see and to examine. And because things have come full circle, we are able, of course, to examine the beasts and understand the beasts more. And all of this is leading up to, of course, the 2025 elections and your responsibility to save Trinidad and Tobago, to save our children, to get us out of this morass and this turbulent time that Rowley and they have invented, have created, have manufactured. Because you cannot conclude otherwise, simply because so much was given to them. We examine that, and there is no gainsaying or at any rate you cannot overemphasize the fact that they got $5 billion in the Heritage and Civilization Fund. They got $10 billion in the reserve. They had in excess liquidities in the banks, $5 billion. How come we have found ourselves poorer and we have found ourselves worse off, especially in circumstances where Dr. Rowley told us that in September 2015, on the 8th, the election was the 7th, and on the 8th of September, if our circumstances are the same, then of course we would have been doing ourselves an injustice because he is here to do better. He can of course turn stone into wine. He can of course do more with less. All kinds of hogwash, fantasy and illusions, and this phantom has come full circle, and now that he and all is a blasted phantom because he's a fake. And of course last night we made it very, very clear that he has fake moralities, and tonight we will of course continue with that series because he went up to Beetham and told the Beetham people, listen, Beetham is a special place with special people and needs special attention. When of course Kamala Prasad Bisesa introduced the 2011 state of emergency, he was all bleeding heart, and he said of course the Africans are being victimized, and that he suggesting once again that when he comes into office he will do something about it, but instead all we are hearing is excuses after excuses, and then at the same time generating legislation such as of course the No Bail Act and the Anti-Gang Act to do what? To of course persecute these very young people, particularly the innocent. I am not concerned about the guilty, but there is a fundamental principle in the criminal law that we practice and observe in this country, and that is, it is better 1,000 guilty person go free than one innocent person find themselves in jail. Fundamental principle. It's better than 1,000 innocent person not 1,000 innocent person. It is better than if 1,000 guilty persons go free than you wrongly imprison one innocent person. Fundamental. And that is the measure of the principle and the certainty that has to be injected into our criminal justice system. But what we have found Rowley utilizing his authority, abusing it. We gave it to him as an electorate to manage our affairs. And what he has done, apart from, of course, recruiting nincompoop or what I consider to be charlatan legal minds to address major cases that he would have brought, not that they are beneficial to Trinidad and Tobago, because we saw where, of course, he had to go to court, for example, to deal with the fake and the false pieces of paper that was issued by the Ministry of Finance, telling people and throwing people into a trauma and anxiety, saying that the Commissioner of Evaluations sent out these letters asking land or property owners to, of course, sign up and to evaluate for themselves. And all of that was a hoodwink, because when the UNC took it to court, the court simply said that they couldn't determine. In fact, the commissioner said that he didn't do it. That's the first thing. He did not send out those letters. And secondly, that if they are to, of course, implement property tax, because that is what it was all about, after saying that they will not implement property tax, remember that Rowley and the They said that they wouldn't. He said that not one of his constituents could afford an additional $100. I cannot overemphasize. Rowley said in 2008, 2009, when he was responding to the PNM budget, remember by that time he would have fallen out with his previous boss, talking about Manning. He said that not one of his constituents could afford an additional $100. And I want to put that in context, because at that time you will hear Rowley saying, and don't get me vexed before I play tonight, but he said then that Trinidad and Tobago made the most amount of money than any other time in the history of course, foreign exchange and earning dividends as a consequence of our trade and other engagement with the rest of the world and the Caribbean. He said that. You see, I'm putting it in the context that coming out of COVID, everybody poor, the poor got poorer, the working class was devastated. They utilized their savings when Rowley and they acquired $22 billion to give us things like food hampers and of course pay rent and to sustain persons who would have had their small businesses, and of course just and support as well the employees that they would have had. None of it. They took the $22 billion and gave it to their 1%ers in the form, of course, of VAT returns, monies that they ought to have had long before COVID to give the people and them. They use COVID as an opportunity to get Kamala and they to agree. Nobody would have in such circumstance. After all, the entire society was vulnerable and subjected to this virus called COVID-19. But they use that. You telling me that these fellas are not associated with the devil directly? They must be associated. It's either friend, either family, or indeed either twins, as in the case of Rowley. And of course, some people say the devil didn't even want Rowley around because he is too much competition. That is the level of evil that these fellas have done to us, and they still, in spite of that coming out of COVID, you still want to implement property tax under the guise of some nonsense about local government. All of that was merely a front, merely a facade, merely an amorphous disposition. None of us could contemplate clearly. It's amorphous. It's a puzzle. You can't think. Why would you do that at this point in time? We just came out of COVID. You got all that money. You inherited all that money. And yet still, as I keep saying these days, not only is Rowley an outsider, must be considered an outsider from Tobago, doing evil to us in Trinidad, because Tobagonians rejected him. We must also be conscientious that the policies and programs under the oppression and the depression and the negativities that has pervaded Trinidad and Tobago, whether it's in the form of crime and criminality, whether it's a poor decision making as far as the economics of the country is concerned, and whether and the spending of our money, their preference rather on paintings, and of course the Magnificent Seven, as opposed to of course giving our children laptops free of charge. No, of course, conditionality such as means test. Hold your tail. So you have impaled us with a dagger in our hearts and telling us it is good. Everything will settle out in due course. Who you think you're talking to? And every day is for the better of Trinidad and Tobago, and we did this for the betterment of Trinidad and Tobago, and it's to advance the interests of Trinidad and Tobago. And he's the best, of course, the best marketer or the best promoter of Trinidad and Tobago, and he has taken on the responsibility, all of which is to get directly involved in the finances of the country, that blasted kleptocratic or kleptomaniac. Yes, indeed. That's what that is about. In our faces. That is why I say certain jail for them, when of course the imperative, the necessity of investigating the entire Rowley Cabinet for what they have done to us and the experience that we would have encountered is as if we may be short of resources such as maybe Grenada, St. Vincent and so on. And even there, they, comparatively speaking, and with a smaller population, are doing better than us as far as settling down on major issues in the country. Yet still Rowley will continue because the funds are available and because he holds the office and because he can, as an evil occupier of the office of Prime Minister, he can stretch the envelope and do us all kinds of evil. So let us not waste time. But yesterday, of course, I think we were very clear in terms of the evil that they would have done to us. And tonight, of course, I just want to, of course, further expand on that in the area of where should I start? Because we have, of course, whether they did well under COVID, whether the monstrosity that they are constructing, are talking about Balize House, whether that is a viable at this time, and a bizarre and of course reckless and brutal display of not just arrogance and contempt for the people, but flaunting our money in our faces by constructing that monstrosity. Should we go there? We looked at, of course, the Coast Guard and the fact that those boats that were purchased by Kabla Prasad Bisesa, about 11 of them, and just packed up there. We said that as well last night. I know that some people may not have been on because, of course, we know that you have to look at your favorite party as well, the party that is destined for government. I'm talking about the UNC had theirs, but we have to continue. And I'm sure that you would have taken a look at the live subsequently, so I wouldn't want to play too much of it, except, of course, to remind you. And if you didn't see it, go back and look at last night's corridor transformation. Let me formally say, of course, a pleasant good night to all and sundry, east, west, north, south, central, our friends in Tobago, and wherever you are streaming on the World Wide Web, a pleasant good day to you. This is, of course, a pleasant good night to you a pleasant good day to you wherever you are in the world, but of course, a pleasant good night to those locally. And let us go straight, of course. I think I would start with, I'll start with this. Yeah. Balize House. From start to finish. Look what they did.
Somehow ended up down as a highway to DB. An offshoot, right? The intention was to build a highway past the creek, down through the main road, down through Rizlak into Point 14, and off that highway, you could build spurs into the other areas. They took the main project into their constituency.
My apology for that. That was inadvertently triggered. But what I wanted you to see in silence, of course,
many of you dipped your hands in your pocket over the last 13 years. 13 years we have been raising the necessary funds to make sure that our party builds a modern headquarters on lands that our party obtained way back in the last century. We worked very hard and we worked very lawfully and we built up the resources, and today your party is close to completing the construction of a brand new multi-story.
That is what this man is saying. In 2015, he told us that the PNM was bankrupt. He told us that it was owing $4 million. That is what he was confronted with when he came in. And don't get me vexed before I present that as well. In fact, I will do it tomorrow just to tie up any loose end. So no way, 8 years, 10 years, 20 years, you could make over $100 million to produce the final product that place will end up being. Let us take a look at it again and hearing with, of course, his usual cacophonous babblings and, of course, deflective stories.
Cabinet meeting.
Yes, that's it. That's it there, people. That's how it was, and as it progressed in terms towards completion, end up there. And you will hear him, of course, at the end of it all, how that came about. Only when the PNM have access to the treasury of the country.
You PNM members, many of you dipped your hands in your pocket over the last 13 years. 13 years we have been raising the necessary funds to make sure that our party builds a modern headquarters on lands that our party obtained way back in the last century. We worked very hard and we worked very lawfully and we built up the resources, and today your party is close to completing the construction of a brand new multi-story building at Balize House, built after 13 years of toil. And we are renovating the old building at the same time. All of a sudden, without one shred of evidence that they can present to anybody, they start a narrative that contractors and government projects building Balize House. Would you believe that? And that is...
Well, a pause here. Look, I told you, and that was a almost center page advertisement in one of the daily newspapers where Jusamco, the company hired by Rowley and his government to construct that piece of the highway to Point Fortin that fell into the swamp below after being constructed, after completion. Look at the Jusamco, and they probably were so grateful that they decided, of course, to show that they are contributing to Balize House and the construction thereof. And why is it so significant? That by itself may, of course, generate some skepticism as to whether or not that was some kind of, let's say, gesture, some kind of what I consider to be appreciation, or they might have been hired. Whether they were doing it for free or they were hired, what Rowley said, neutralize and throw not just cold water, not just brackish water, but boiling water on that nonsense that he told the population via, of course, that meeting, that last meeting they had, as far as the local government elections was concerned on the 14th of August this year, when he said what? That not a single contractor hired by the government worked on that building. So therefore, if you want to say that they have a right to hire somebody, and then you could attribute that situation there, the pouring of concrete, and I want you to observe that picture. It's very important. Let me shift my head a little bit so you will see. I want to tell you that that is the foundation. Notice no steel is up yet. No steel is up yet. So from the foundation, and the fact that Dr. Rowley and them must be caught with their pants down, because it is an asinine argument that not one contractor hired by the government worked on Balize House. You see, he has poured, as I said, boiling water on the incongruent and the illogical and the lack of common sense statement that he would have made, believing that he could fool us, and like the ostrich, he backside outside because Josamco went and of course put that in an advertisement in the papers showing that they are constructing, or they are part of the construction of Balize House at the foundation level, and nothing Rowley say now could wash him from, of course, the lie and the deception that he attempted, because he made a very clear and categorical statement that no contractor, none, nada, contractor hired by the government worked on Balize House. Yet still that picture shows that the Josamco, a company in the Junior Sammy group of companies, not only worked on the highway to Point Fortin and therefore would have been a contractor of the government, or put another way, the government contracted it, but it found itself pouring concrete on the foundation at Balize House. Rowley saying in non-certain terms only just before the 14th of August, when of course the final campaign day for their election campaign in that particular election, said that in uncertain terms, categorically, that not one contractor worked in it. He didn't say that there was some, he didn't say that the PNM had a right, of course, to contract or to hire anybody to assist them in their efforts, because he said after 13 years they accumulated the money, and we know that during that period it was about raffle, several high-end cars that they said they were raffling. But you cannot tell me that monstrosity that eventually turned out to be this so-called headquarters, this gangster headquarters of the PNM, you can't tell me that they sell raffles to the tune of $100 million, and we are only talking about the infrastructure and what is there. We're talking yet about, of course, the furnishing of that place, because it is 5 stories high, a monstrosity of, and therefore a symbol of not only the waste, profligacy, incompetence, but rank and unadulterated corruption on the part of this criminal that has found himself. And the PNM must be indicted for their recklessness and their brutality as they expose the population to that kind of undemocratic avarice, greed, corruption, nepotism, and cronyism for self-gain. And the party believes that it can continue to dominate the politics in the country. Well, let me tell you this: just as the office block at Pointe-à-Pierre, go up there and you will see, I'll bring a picture for you as well, just as the office block at Pointe-à-Pierre, where the PNM and their agents inside of Petrotrin constructing a steel, out of steel, a office block just on the eastern side of the real estate or the land at Pointe-à-Pierre, where the oil refinery is. You will see it, you can see it from the highway when you're coming down, or you're going towards San Fernando, or you're coming from San Fernando towards Port of Spain. You will see a steel structure here, Malcolm Jones, and of course the PNM. That is their legacy. Well, I am saying all of that to say that the population must make sure that monstrosity that is being constructed remain just as that rotten and rusting steel building that is at Point of Peer. A pleasant good night. Welcome to the corridor. Yes, good night to you as well. Yeah, go ahead. Why you're breaking up, boy? Are you hearing me good?
You will never support you and you can't support the Indian, son. I look at you right now. Are you? I can't be son.
Oh boy, yeah. I hear you. You're so emotional, but it's I'm not hearing you well.
Boy, that's not.
Yes, go ahead. Let's see if we get you better now. Yeah, much better.
Yeah, right. So I told him, I said, you see, I said, my guy. You see, yeah, I can't support that Indian government. I said, boy, you people in the crowd, rather than it's Indian boy. I said, most of the businesses in the private sector is owned by the Syrian and East Indian. If hardly African or any business to employ people, I said, be careful and statement on making. That is the level of the thinking and people and them. We must have about 21 or 22 years and we know nothing much about politics, but they're so drawn in what the 11 and what a little bit the 11 and number.
Yeah.
Yeah?
No, you're right. You go ahead. You have. Yeah. I agree. I concur. Yeah. Very sad. Yes, indeed. And in response to that caller, just in case you didn't hear it, people, he's saying that, of course, obviously some African guys, a young man is saying that he can't support them Indians. I mean, come on. Survivability has nothing to do with color of skin and texture of hair. It is about your survival. Let me just. Yeah. So thanks very much for the intervention that you made and the contribution. But I want to say two things. There are none as blind as he or she who refuses to see. You have 20/20 vision. You're seeing what is around you. You are alerted to the environmental threats and the challenges. But yet still you're pretending that it is not so. And that you will see a precipice and walk over it. There is none as blind as he or she who refuses to see. There are more blind people than that, because the blind people, the people who are physically blind, fine, of course. We know that there is, of course, a difficulty there. But you can't tell me you have 20/20 vision and still pretending as though you are blind, and not even the blind man or woman would want to see a precipice. And if somebody could, as a good Samaritan, detour them, save them from going there, they will take up the opportunity. They will. And so I want to make that first clear, that there is none as blind as he or she who refuses to see. The other point I want to make, it's couched, of course, in these cliches that I like to give before I give the explanation and or the rationale, and to have people search their conscience as a consequence. Luck is I shouldn't use luck. I should use the analogy of survival. the first law of survival is self-preservation. You know what I say? I say that the first law of survival is self-preservation. And you're so stupid to, of course, vicariously, as if you are Rowley and them, and if you are those ministers who are eating ham, lamb, and jam, and all their job is to do is to tell you somehow, not relating to your reality, that Kamala gave him a Hana banana and he is not a monkey, and then gone all over the world so that it appeals to your basic instinct, your what is called your tribal instinct, and therefore all of the barbary and all of the evil and all of the misspending and bad spending and all of the poverty that you and your family and your community and the swirling like a cesspool of a total deterioration by their mismanagement and incompetent and misappropriation of resources. And you're seeing it blatant as the person who, with 2020 vision, refused to see listen, plants know what to do. Animals know what to do. You think a plant in need of water, knowing that is the only thing, or among that, apart from the nutrition in the soil. But even if there is no nutrition, the roots gravitate to where it thinks the nutrition is. There is something called even hydrotropism and phototropism. That is, plants know in order to create food through a process called dedicated, of course, to the survival of the plant. They will do what is required to survive. Photosynthesis. They produce food in the presence of light. Photosynthesis. And they will gravitate where the food is in the soil. You as a human being don't know that when Rowley and them using your common sense, God-given, talking the hogwash that they is the best they could do, and that Rowley telling you and emphasizing that he met a $5 billion there in the Heritage and Civilization Fund and $10 billion in reserves, and that he will not, of course, impose property tax, and that he will not take away subsidies so as to make your life on a daily basis, your cost of living and the access to food, shelter, clothing more difficult. Come on. Plants do it. Animals do it. How come we as human beings in Trinidad and Tobago don't understand that we have to act in our own best interest? That is the lesson. That is the lesson. The plant will, in a very dark jungle, every single plant looking to see if it could get light, because that's the only way it could survive. In order to develop and to engage in photosynthesis, they must have light. So a dense jungle, you see them struggling. Vines will rope around those major trees that will form the canopy of the forest in order to get their share of the light. Because the other plants will take it up because it's competition. Why must you hand it to Rowley and they on the basis that they say that all of us are Africans together and that we have the same texture of hair and color of skin. But they move away from the ghetto and close to the ghetto. Look what they just did to Desperados. Desperados was on Traggeridge Road, a stone's throw from Balize House. It is clear they didn't want them close to them. And so they put them, build what I consider to be a cheap structure for them on Nelson Street. On Nelson Street, they put Desperados. And let me show you what that caller was referring to by the comment of that young man saying he can't vote for them Indians. Well, let me show you what that is all about with the Despas experience. He come as though he accepting that position that Desperados was made to believe that they are comfortable and they should be comfortable on Nelson Street. The thing about it is that the leadership of Desperados, I don't know if they have protested, but I will be very annoyed if they did not, because what you have done, what Rowley and they have done by putting Desperados on Nelson Street is ensuring the destruction of the band. You know what I say? I say they put Despas there to ensure the destruction of the band. You cannot tell me that everybody knows you can't go on Nelson Street. You cannot tell me that you don't know the amount of gunfire that takes place there. You cannot tell me you don't know the drive-by shootings that takes place there. You cannot tell me that you don't know the hectic gang activities that take place and maiming and killing and of course not too far from there of course is St. Paul Street. Further east and just up the road is of course Bart Street and of course Mango Roads, and you have of course Nelson Street itself split into upper and lower Nelson Street. All of that is gang war, and you put Despas in the middle of that. Rowley and all real wicked boy. Evil people, you put them there to die. And if you go and look at the fencing, one would have expected that Rowley and they, because he mentioned it, you know, he said when he was giving them, handing over the keys to that facility to Desperados, he said he don't want to come back here and hear that this is a killing field or a place for gang activities. That wicked son of a bitch. That wicked son of a bitch. So he knows. He just don't want them close to Balize House because it means therefore these people who have committed themselves to the PNM over the years from on the hill in Laventille East, they are basically in. But of course, all of Laventille feel proud to know that they have the greatest steel band in the world in our midst. But at the same time, Rowley and them don't want them close to Balize House on Traggeridge Road. So he put them down there. And just in case you believe that I am talking ad hominem or that I don't know what I'm talking about, well, I want to tell you this. Rowley told the band that, listen, trying to justify the money that was unnecessarily spent on QRC, on Mayflower, on the Whitehall, on Stolmeyer's Castle, and of course the President House and the Red House. Prefer to spend the money there rather than, of course, giving the children laptops free of charge, unconditionally, or improving or increasing the food or the school lunches. Prefer to do that. And told them in no certain terms that when tourists come, hear the classic. Rowley told Desperados and all who had ears to hear and witnessing that travesty, that setup, that political Dracula, that political killer, He told them in his address to them, handing over the keys, in a place where he knew and know and ought to know that is a killing field, and put them right in the center. And let me show you how wicked, how further wicked. If you believe he couldn't be more wicked, well, there is more. You see, the fencing is not a wall fencing, you know, taking into account, of course, the fact that they have to, of course, protect themselves when they are inside of the compound. One would have expected that they have to fortify themselves and develop a fortress, and therefore one would have expected that the protection between those outside the compound and those inside of the compound, consideration would have been given to the security. You see, I am not talking by accident, man. I am talking because I know. You know that fencing on both sides, on George Street side and Nelson Street side. You know the only difference is that is a nicely looking chain fence. Chain fence, you know that chain fence? Wire, of course, woven together. Wire woven together with some big holes, and they fence desperados on Nelson Street side and on George Street side with that. You understand what I'm saying? Encouraging and promoting the killing of those persons who may be there very innocuously and religiously doing what they know best, practicing for panorama or some festival, and next thing some warfare take place because the Nelson Street, on the eastern side of Nelson Street, are where the gangs accumulate, and then the next street, of course, is Duncan Street. So that whole community, desperados was exposed to. And mind you, they ought to know, Rowley and them ought to know why you did that to desperados. It's just a matter of time. You ain't here yet. But there was, after that launch, there was a drive-by shooting at the corner of Queen and Nelson Street. A stone's throw, just one building separating on Nelson Street, separating that corner from desperados. But more than that, they ought to know that because of the gang situation and the fact that there is a Muslim and the Rastafarian grouping or gangs, and where desperados came from, I think up there represents the Muslim, and of course those close to Nelson Street, Rasta, or it could be the reverse, whichever, but the fact is that they are warring gangs. And if it is that those fellas who are resident where desperados came from on the hill, Despelly Crescent, and therefore most of the players would be from that area, obviously, how these fellas coming down into the territory of that gang that resides, know all of the ins and outs on Nelson, Duncan, and George Street. How them coming down to practice there for carnival? How they coming to practice? How? Rowley, you're wicked, you're evil, you're dangerous, and you have these young people saying that they do not understand why people must reject the so-called African tribal disposition to keep them in office so that they could do us evil. But it didn't finish yet. That didn't finish yet. Rowley told them that when tourists come to drive round the savannah, to see his vanity projects, the renovation of Mayfair, as I said, and the Whitehall and the President House and so on. They then drive down Charlotte Street. That is the description he gave it. Something like when he was talking about them fake emails in the parliament. He could give a good story, a narrative. You would believe, you could visualize it. But the man only has evil intent and wickedness. And of course, macabre, diabolical, dangerous, Luciferian, and devilish intent. So he told them, when the tourists come and they see from QRC come right wrong, and you go down Charlotte Street, and you go into Park Street, and then you go across Piccadilly Street, and you come down Nelson Street, people will come down there, tourists will come down there to see desperados practice and play pan. You want to hit, when you hear that, you want to hit Rowley one clout. They have a sweet ball head for a clout behind his occipital region. Yeah. What kind of hogwash is that? What kind of, what I consider to be fatalistic encouragement that is? How that could come out a prime minister head who claims to be a grassroots man, who claims that the PNM is a grassroots party, that is an African party, and you could come up with that kind of what I consider to be encouragement for suicide by the entire desperados entity. What will drive you to do that? And mind you, the story ain't done yet. No, yes, it have more. You see, YC was saying that that tourists will come and go down Nelson Street and, of course, witness their favorite band, having heard about it, of course, in magazines, etc. I want to tell you that the governments of these countries where the tourists will come from and the investment will come from, whether it be Canada, whether it be the United States, whether it be the United Kingdom, whether it be France, whether it be Italy, whether it be Germany, their governments are telling their people, don't come Trinidad. Don't come Trinidad. But that is not as bad as what I'm going to tell you now to close it off. The fact that they tell them, don't come Trinidad because we are the sixth most dangerous place in the world. Most violent. But they have something called advisories where they tell their citizens, if you have to come to Trinidad, let me repeat, if you have to come to Trinidad for business, for opportunities, what have you, family, etc., one of the streets that they put in their bulletin advising their residents, their citizens, and their compatriots, as they have a responsibility to and for as a responsible government in these countries, they put inside of that advisory, don't go Nelson Street, don't go wrong the Savannah. You hear what I say? I say that in the book, in the bulletin, in the information that they would have given to their own residents who would come here as tourists or investors, whether it be from Canada, whether it be from the United States, whether it be from United Kingdom, whether it be Germany, whether it be Italy, whether it be France. They put inside of that document. Go and look on the website right now of the American Embassy, for example, and just type in advisories against Trinidad and Tobago, the American Embassy, and see what you get. And read it. Don't be fooled, young man or young woman. Rowley and they are simply toxic. And if they would encourage and talk that level of hogwash to desperados, and still, of course, encourage our people and engage in criminal behavior, in hoodwinking, in deception, in fraud, to tell the people, because they want to get their way. They want your mattress money to go in the coffers of the country so they can have access to it. You understand why they would issue thousands of these forms telling you, even though the Commissioner of Valuation never saw it, didn't know about it, but Imbert and them will orchestrate that. To do what? To get your money, to beat you into complacency, to beat you into submission. We must resist that, people. And that exercise, that information that person called is no help. We must reach those kinds of young people and tell them, no, there's another side of the coin, and that alternate reality is a figment of Dr. Rowley and his minions' pernicious mentality and imagination, and it is done merely to do exactly that, to hoodwink you into, of course, gravitating to them, or put more realistically, for you to hate the Indians, even though in the context of Trinidad and Tobago, that is a relative term, but as an Indian party or African party relative term, it is merely a symbolism. What is important is who is able to deliver to the people as far as possible and stretch it to the ultimate, and to improve our quality of life and standard of living, to send our children to school, to put food on the table, to get employment, and to live a comfortable life with some degree of enjoyment and, of course, leisure. That is what has to happen. People, of course, I know that the topic is solid. I know that it is hefty, but 337-6940, 337-6940, and of course, if you want to assist us with our Carnival drive, well, sorry, not Carnival already, our Christmas drive, the 336-6594. No, we will have no Carnival drive. I will take the time to rest and to, of course, treat with you as well. So let us continue, of course, with that picture that is in that video on the screen. So Rowley lied again. Lied again. How could you be so gullible? And that is because the PNM had no succession planning. And that the PNM as an entity controlled and kidnapped, if you want to, infiltrated by people like Rowley and Manning, and they saw it as an opportunity for them to get artificial access to fame, fortune, yes. Rowley was a lecturer. He could never had it better after he came into the PNM and they got into government. He suddenly is a millionaire, so they say, several times over, utilizing your money and my money, and all they're giving us in return is old talk and appealing to our base sentiment. Do not, please. You will not be doing a service to Trinidad and Tobago, because eventually we will have to face reality. We will have to face reality, all of us, whether we like it or not. We vote for the best, full stop. A pleasant good night. Welcome to the corridor.
Good evening, Dr.
Good evening to you as well, my friend. Yeah, you loud and clear, loud and clear, loud and clear. Oh yeah, well, we are seeing it all over the place. Hardly any lights, and if they have lights, it's so dim that you can't believe it's Christmas. You believe it's more a week.
tell everybody on the live good evening. Good evening, have a blessed night. Go on later.
Yes, indeed. Yes, thank you very much, of course, for that intervention. And of course, so I left it there for a purpose. You see, Rowley told us that no contractor contracted by the government worked on Balize House. And I left it there to show you that no steel structure was up as yet. It means, therefore, that they were cheating with the foundation, and that Jusamco was pouring concrete there. They block off the road outside of Balize House. The man is a blatant and consummate and pathological liar. His mendaciousness is unfathomable. His prevarications knows no limit. Yes. And a spontaneous liar as there could be. And that's a mental state. And therefore a sick man. And he therefore, in my view, is a serial, not just pathological, but a serious and serial sociopath. Man is dangerous to the extreme. And he don't mind finding himself in places that he ought not to be with that kind of record, and pretending and using, of course, the cloak of Prime Minister of Trinidad and Tobago. That's the only why. That's the only reason. Otherwise, he couldn't be there. And we must discontinue that the first opportunity we get. A pleasant good night. Welcome to the corridor. Pleasant good night. Welcome to the corridor. Thank you. Hey.
It comes just like his line so good that when the report farm, he give it to a contractor to harvest and to grow stone and aggregate to the highways. And the same contractor bring goat and sheep into the country, but it end up in Tobago. You know how it's Sumatra State. And so he will say that he and his downhand sell lottery tickets and ability.
Yeah.
But you know for a fact, and it's really open, that where they get all the kickback and the revenue through state funding. And I could prove it that since 1972, when Professor Ken Julian signed the deal with Trinidad Cicero, you see that they went back against $15 million of wrongdoing from the PNM. This always sell the patrimony rights of the citizens and write it back. And Eric Williams started it. And when they come and they do it in this modern time with the dragon gas, and right now, Stuart and Rowley is just like Tapas Ali in Guyana, because Oduro said he wanted to go and take the explicable. But the thing about it now, Rowley has his gas in his country and in his territorial water, and he begged Maduro even to take it, and he was paid to take what it's his own. But he's so greedy and hungry for that money. It's billions of dollars to come in the coffers. He's shouting up it and telling the voted bank that, hey, the more revenue that they will reach out to the audience. But since 1972, after the East West Corridor, Lavantil, Silox, and the main part and capital city, what is the improvement from since 1972 to now? And it's for meeting them, just to justify what you are saying. It's only when it comes for election, you will give them a little bit of goodies and tell them, come and vote for me, and I will give a life better. And all the years, 8 years, $500 billion in budgeted allocation disappear. And up to this day, for a state cannot be a city like Manhattan or any other city in the Caribbean. The capital is so nice, but just imagine people living in the capital. Look at the impoverished, the poverty level, and the reflection of the homes, not this garden, is because poverty majority of the revenue reaching them is not reaching them anywhere with themselves. So he's using that now with the gangs and geographic discrimination, where the gangs and go to Central and where on his UNC, whatever they're thinking that they will migrate and he will have an easier way to win the election. Because you see, the Rostonia in Chaguanas on the way he put the NHA house in London, people in it. So they tell themselves, since in Ergolam time, we try to get the half of the Central land. So they will just keep winking, promising, and it will never materialize. Oh, nice. Thanks for giving me the opportunity.
Yeah, thank you very much as well, my friend. Thank you very much for that contribution. And I want to say too that there's another factor that is a law that cannot be twisted or bent or that rule broken. Evil could never prevail over good. Evil could never prevail over good. And what are some of the mechanisms that they would have concocted in order to get that artificial wealth that they would have had, that ill-gotten, the ill-gotten general gains, whether in office, whether the thief elections, etc. Well, let me tell you, because it is about money for them. If they didn't have money in this, them fellas ain't there at all. And money that is so overwhelming and so prolific that it worth the risk. And what is the form in which it comes? But let me just give you about 3 more in addition, of course, to the kickback that I just spoke of with respect, of course, to Josamco. Let me just give you about 3 more. I'll give you about 3 more, just to make sure that we put it in perspective. And for those young people who may not know better, but believe that somehow when Rowley speaks, he's speaking the truth. Good night. Yes, loud and clear. Yes.
Yeah. Okay, now imagine we can be down here to talk to Maduro in some way to take down tensions and think about that. But you know, when you come back from them talks, he must be on to that statue with tongue.
Yeah, I agree with you. That is the egotist that he is. That is the level of hubris that he will convey. Because he literally did nothing. He put us in more jeopardy and then come back when he get a little edge. He come back and say that it's monumental and of course it's a game changer and so on and so on. Any port for a storm to redeem incompetence.
Well, I don't watch she's doing. When you went England, they're going get your son train 1 or train.
Train 3, train 2 and 3. He closed down, of course. Train 1 is closed down.
Train 1. Now you know when money coming again in this country, because like everybody is train them all and studying the Jangan. You see that going through. We have seen that going through. Now we know how we know future. The best deal for you or to me was either follow from that deal, squash that deal, and talk close with Diana at least and try to see if we can get some results from them.
But he's scuttled that too. The man have a penchant. He has a proclivity, a tendency to spoil vinegar. He will destroy the taste of honey. That's how sour that man is.
He make bad relationship with them from saying people when he tell them they're going for vaccine.
That's right.
They send back. Remember when we send them water when they had something?
Yeah, no, when they send back, yeah. And then recently, after the election, yeah, he mocked the people of them currency.
Yeah.
The man is toxic. He's evil. Go ahead.
Yeah, I mean, I saw FCD on TV. I mean, because I'm not going to say she people.
Yes. She said blatantly, yes, that it's wrong. It's breach of international law, and therefore any right-thinking, democratic really conscientious leader must come and say that the people and them made adjudicated, and therefore Maduro has to conform as well as Guyana.
Yeah, next year, the started piece like crazy, because elections.
Oh yes, oh yes. So yeah, that's why I have to say how just give them anecdotal instances. You see, because they didn't cater for a ground report or a corridor transformation or Annie Roberts or Victor Roberts. You see, they thought that they were still in the 60s and maybe the late 70s and late 80s, 90s and so on. But after that, they cook. They could never win an election legitimately. Always some kind of skullduggery, particularly after 1986.
Well, are you being taken up the books from Maduro and he want to do something and change that to make?
Let him try. He will try. Yeah, he will try. Don't put that on him. He will try. They want 1,000 police officers and so on. What do you think all of that is all about? They're going to put, of course, their PNM people who would be there. They're already there in the various offices. But what they're doing is bringing the country into disrepute, bringing the country to a standstill eventually. That is not sustainable. And those persons who have been so encouraged must tell them that they are patriots, and even if they wanted the little assistance or the opportunity that they would have given them, but once it's an independent institution like the police commissioner or the police service commission or any one of the independent constitutionally protected institutions, so whether it be the public service, whether it be the fire service, prison, etc., they have a right to say that no, yes, thank you for the work, but I am not going to do what you asked me to do because it is wrong.
Yeah, but that was still too long, but people go,
yes.
The police, so the team, because remember back in the day, some woman they shoot some man and had some Bacala, and so I didn't go that time, but when they shoot some fella who were like, I don't pay them with the parliament or something, they won't have riots or something. So
yeah, but this fella Rowley has made what Eric William and them did as if it's child's play. The man is seriously corrupt, seriously evil, and a serious criminal. Yes. So, all right, well, we'll pick up because we fast get into 10 o'clock. I just have a slight delay today in starting, so I'll just give you back that. But time does just expire when we almost seem to be just started. But that being as let me just quickly say that the form of kickbacks and how they get the money, and they have to be in government to do that. That is why Balize House is what it is today. Well, one, direct kickbacks from, of course, those contractors, including, of course, the ones that Dr. Rowley say that never assisted, but in fact assisted. So we know that that is clearly one of those that they have in the bag. And that approach, you have, of course, fellas like, and I say so without fear of contradiction, you have fellas like, of course, the head of UDCOT, Noel Garcia, and he's at AGC as well. His job is to engage those contractors and get the kickback. He's a bag man. I say so without fear of contradiction, because I'll tell you later down the road, because experience is the best teacher. Not going to give you all tonight. I didn't want to do it like last night, where, of course, the people had almost a brain fatigue. So you'll get some over time, anecdotally, in other words. Yeah, so that is one way. Another way, like we discovered in Tobago, where unspent balances will not find its way back to the exchequer, back to the treasury, but they will put it in a bank account. And then that account will accumulate interest, and suddenly the interest missing. You know what I say? I say, what they will do, unspent balance because they believe that that is not the country's money. The interest that would have accumulated, that is their money. And somebody takes it, or somebody's, because it couldn't be one person alone engaged in that, what I consider to be conspiracy to defraud the country's resources. And so they do it in that way as well. There's also another way they do it called bolt. Rowley is very familiar with that. And of course, the former mayor as well. He too would have been engaged in that kind. We saw it in Tobago and we saw it here in Trinidad. In the case of Trinidad, of course, we saw it when the Greenvale construction took place. And what will happen is that, connected to that, is that they will know the government is going to do a particular project, and they will have their friends and their colleagues and comrades buy up the land. Usually it's real estate, buy up the land for small money, and then the government will pay, of course, a beyond market price for it, because by so-called acquisition for a public purpose. Yeah. So in the case of Greenvale, that land was, of course, agricultural land, but to me, it looked more like a blasted lake bed that they found. And Rowley, as Minister of Housing, bought the land without approval, without tongue and country approval, or without approval here, meaning that change of use, but bought it as residential property, as residential land, as land for residential purpose, which of course by its very nature will cost more than if it was agricultural land. That is what Rowley and they are engaged in. There's another scheme that they engage in called bolt. They bolt, B-O-L-T. They buy, and then they build, and then of course they lease it as well, and then of course buy it back from the developer. Let me show you how that works. It has worked, of course, in that building at the corner of, I think it's Shervin Road in Tobago. That was supposed to be for agriculture. So what they did, the land itself was owned by a member of the party, the former mayor of Port of Spain. I'll get the name during the course of our discussion and the revelation. Owned by them. THA bought it, because remember it's a PNM THA then. And then THA come now and lease it back to them for small money. They take the lease itself and go to the bank because they're going to build in this case, an agricultural office complex for the THA. So Rahel and they own the land, sell it to THA, millions of dollars. Then THA lease it back to the Rahels and them to construct a complex. The complex itself costed $300 million. But they take the same lease that they get, apart from the money that they would have gotten from the original purchase by THA of the same land. Yeah. Yes. We want them to know we know. We want them to know that the ass is grass when the time comes. And that these things can easily be traced because it has to end up in one of them pockets, or associated with one of them bank accounts, or one of them assets. Yes. And after that, the Rahels will hold it. The finished building will hold it until they pay over $300 million for the final, and then they pass it over to them. They release it to to the THA. That is the schemes. I ain't finished yet. There is more. They will engage in unnecessary exercises that will generate the argument for them that they have done some kind of research, and therefore there's a need for more libraries. There's a need for not fire station, or not, of course, fire equipment, because that's too transparent. Because Unicut will be handling those things, and Unicut is now under the office of the Prime Minister. Understand the nexus. That is why Rowley today has to go before the Integrity Commission again on, of course, a matter of a similar nature, but say that somebody looking to hung he down, that criminal, that miscreant, that avarice, that greedy, and as he gourmandize, and as he become more and more confident, in such circumstance, these criminals, they provide more and more irrefutable or culpable evidence to convict them in ordinary circumstance. That is why I am certain that he will make a jail. He Rowley, and of course his ministers for the Petrotrin decision, fake oil decision. I know that for sure. But the point I am making is that there is a scheme that they come up with, and they pocket the millions, and we are none the wiser. The final one I want to tell you, apart from utilizing projects that they would claim is beneficial to the country, but we could see it is obsolete, it is dotish, it is irrational, it is unnecessary. So they will build, as I said, community centers and library. Today, people want no library. You give them laptops, but laptops are that money too small. One, or that it had to be divided among too much. And of course, you could easily probably make it transparent. So they want that. So, what's the other scheme that they will do? They will go to the parliament and legislate scenarios to benefit them. And what is the latest? The latest is that Rowley has one constructed now in what was called then Landed, the same land. He changed the name, but it's there. We went there for the THA elections and we saw it in various stages of completion. Imbert finished his in Newtown, in Woodbrook there. Yeah, he finishes. And Rowley, of course, is engaged, but at a different level. So there's a two-pronged approach in terms of legislation, creating legislation to benefit them. So high-rise family apartments, no taxes for 25 years. So Imbert built his, Rowley is building his. Yeah. And in the case of telling us that you construct the government plaza to stop renting from private owners of buildings. That's what Rowley told us. Stop. Because we're still paying for it by way of loan since Manning started that initiative. The UNC had to pay the installments as well as this administration. But the others on this other side, because of the close proximity or the nearness or being part of that conspiracy, there are some private owners that are not getting, or put another way, because they are connected to the party, are not getting the wrath of not renting their building. In other words, they rent their buildings. So number 1, Alexandra. Number 3, Alexandra. The IQA building in Barataria that is housing, of course, all matters pertaining to the collection of property tax. The one opposite, the building opposite, that was once the opposition leader's office on Frederick Street. There's one at the corner of Oxford and Abercrombie Street, all connected to or owned by Al-Rari and his family. That's the other way. There are other ways. We will deal with that at the appropriate time. We will deal with that. I ain't talking yet, of course, where you have high profile and high visibility presence to make it look as though they're doing something, but all connected. That one is at a different level, but connected for re-election purposes. Re-election purposes. So when they put people inside of houses, agency houses, close to elections, when they constructed major roads and resurfacing main thoroughfare, highways in particular, and main roads, all of that is to direct your mind now so that as they eat from east, west, north, and south, they now, of course, have to make certain that they stay in office so that they are not investigated. But even in those circumstances, we saw in 1986 when they exhausted the resources of the country. So that is why Rowley and they are now desperate to try to plug the holes that they have created. And the country is now a financial, what I consider to be strainer. It is so perforated, it is unbelievable financially. So they're going into property tax, etc. And of course, as we know, the role of lying to the people, saying they will not do something that we believe will be beneficial to us, and then go and in fact do it, and then make some other excuse that they suddenly recognize that they had to do, but to the disappointment and the deception ultimately of the people of Trinidad and Tobago, they would have perpetrated. So let's go and finish. I think I have said enough. I know that people are amazed. I know that people are amazed and stunned and stultified by the level and the complexity of their ruthless, brutal raiding and ravaging the treasury and the country as a whole. I ain't talk yet about how they are acquiring assets, land assets, state land assets, and then getting handsome loans from the bank in order to construct. And from that construction, they get more again. And their friends and family continue, of course, to prosper. Whilst we continue to wallow, and whilst they claim that they are holier than thou, and that they are what? And that they are pristine, and that they are immaculate, and try to deflect attention away from themselves. As I said, and often say that if there was not a Kamala Prasad Bisesa and a UNC, Rowley and they will have invented a Kamala Prasad Bisesa and a UNC simply because they had to deflect attention away from themselves. Evil, wicked, diabolical, greedy, and of course, must make a jail.
Our party obtained way back in the last century. We worked very hard, and we worked very lawfully, and we built up the resources. And today, your party is close to completing the construction of a brand new multi-story building at Balize House, built after 13 years of toil. And we are renovating the old building at the same time. All of a sudden, without one shred of evidence that they could present to anybody,
let's go straight to the lines. I know that people are simply amazed and dazed at the same time. A pleasant good night. Yes.
You know, when John said about acquiring state land, the government acquiring state land and going to the bank. They don't want to acquire the state land and they do a valuation, like automatic equity, so they can borrow money
on the value or from the equity.
They put out a cent. They put out a cent. Yeah.
Yeah. Thank you much.
Oh, thank you very much. Thank you very much. Yes, yes, indeed. Yeah. So there's a multiple level of ways to steal and to raid the treasury and to disfigure the treasury and to put us in jeopardy, particularly the working class. They have no conscience because it is about them. And we must say it is about us. As I said, the first law of survival is self-preservation. We must now look at ourselves, and one of the ways of doing it is to making sure that they get out of office, that ravaging bunch of opportunistic, political, greedy, contemptuous, as well as, of course, inside of all of that, they are incompetent. And yet still, they are the ones that manages the affairs. That's why we are the laughing stock of the region, the hemisphere, and the world. People wonder, you heard what Biden told Rowley when that concocted, that orchestrated doctor degree, that degree was given to Rowley. You know what he tell him? I could never forget that. Biden tell him, I thought you was a simple policy maker in Trinidad. In other words, Biden told us that we know who you are associated with Maduro, etc., etc. I could see that happening. I could see that in his mind, because he would have been briefed as to who this viper is by the, of course, the ambassadors that would have come here and had interaction and would have had a close-up look at the operations of Rowley and his administration. That is the first thing that came to my mind, because outside of that, he would have seen him as a colleague. He never saw him as a colleague. He saw him as some underling opportunists who trying, of course, to with an ideology that is similar to that of Maduro, and that's how. But of course, being in that function, Biden had to rethink. But of course, I'm sure that his advisors and those persons who are supposed to be a part of the CIA and the other security apparatus of the United States will tell Biden, no. All of that is a sham. All of that is a sham. Rowley is just a fake. Yes, indeed, of course. Let's go straight, of course, to the line. Sorry, to finish.
Building Balize House. Would you believe that? And that is meant to tarnish the effort that you have made for the last 13 years.
So that is the history of the Balize House so far. They have reached, of course, I think they're opening the old part, and that part is yet. As I said, our job is to make sure that it remains as a white elephant. They say that's a term that is used to, of course, when something is left abandoned. So just as a Petrotrin, that should remain just so as well. No way must we encourage the construction of that monstrosity. Yes, indeed. And of course, there are other issues with respect, of course, to crime and criminality that I want to share with you. I trust that, it's already 10 o'clock. But let me give you a piece as to what I wanted to share with you tonight as far as crime and criminality is concerned.
The Prime Minister said in Trinidad and Tobago today, we need to confront a reality that we cannot run away from, which is, in a diverse society, African people are not doing well.
Some people are saying, is this a real place? Yes, it is a real place. And we have real problems. And it requires real solutions and real leadership.
Big talk. Listen to
and
him.
the time has come where this Emancipation Day ought not just to be a day for frivolity and wearing nice African clothes.
I want to tell the Africans, listen to him.
Violence which is commonplace in Trinidad and Tobago today. Who is affected? Who is carrying it out? Who is defending it? Who is being ignored? Ladies and gentlemen, this country has a lot of problems, but let us not for 1 minute believe that this is not a problem for all the people of Trinidad and Tobago.
I'm going to the end.
And the government must be held accountable. The country is awash in blood. There isn't a news item in this country where there isn't a good chance that a major part of the news is who killed who.
So people, I'm going to explain tomorrow, but certainly that was emancipation when, of course, he identified the fact that it's Africans. But of course, during the course of the SOE instituted in 2011 by Kamala Persad-Bissessa, he loved the Africans, and of course, the Africans were being persecuted, according to him. But today, he's facing reality. Why? Because he wants to be where Kamala was and would say anything, and of course, destroy the society as far as crime is concerned, because it is affecting all of us, and he can do nothing about it. The only people that can do something about it is Kamala Persad-Bissessa and the UNC, because they have demonstrated that over 2010 to 2015, and at any rate, every time a different government or party takes office, crime and murders are reduced. What do you want? What say you, young people? What say you, young people? You want a man who pushing a dagger into your heart and telling you everything is all right, you are going to survive, and over time, you just, of course, expire? Come on, along the East-West corridor. And Diego Martin West must be in jeopardy, right up to Laventille, right up, of course, to St. Joseph, and we can go on and on. You have a duty, you have a rendezvous with destiny, and you have a rendezvous, of course, with your own appreciation of yourself, and doing what is required in order to save not only yourself, your community, but also your children and your children's children, not under those vipers who are exploitative at best, and at worst, they are murderers. You had to be a murderer to do despise that. So what is the outcome? This should be the outcome.
We're taking the advice from you, the people. And when you have had enough of what we have done, you know exactly what to do. You know what to do.
Your vote will decide.
That is what you need to do. Your vote will determine ultimately. And yes, people, of course, we have come to the end of tonight's exercise. It's 6 minutes past already. Of course, by the time we finish here, it will be time to, of course, make my exit. But I want to say it was a pleasure once again doing it for you. And tomorrow I'll play that entire tape. I missed out parts of it just to get where I am at this point, because there's so much fresh information, and we take in from what transpired in the past, because, you know, he also talked about crime as a religious men of the cloth must take on the responsibility. He talked about parents, etc. And then, of course, the latest, he says that it is a health problem. Hogwash. Any port for a storm. Excuses for incompetence, impotence, and not wanting to face reality, that you should be calling an election in order to settle this matter once and for all. But these fellas are not about that. It is about filling their pockets, and then give us platitudes, old talk, as they display hangers-on mentality. This is a lame duck government. Yes, it's a lame duck government by a bunch of Neanderthals, as we discovered yesterday. Who in their right mind will say that children are using their laptops given by government for pornography and for games? It's only a warped mind. Only a perverted mind. And Rowley is a pervert. He is a predator. He is a rapist and a pedophile. Yes, indeed. You know, I must say that every night.
Our country straight. Move and use it well before it's too late.
The behavior in the national community is deteriorating and deteriorating rapidly because nothing useful is filling the vacuum.
See these boots I'm wearing? We the farmers of Tobago and Texas, we call them shit kickers, right? And I'm hoping that I'll meet Dr. Munilal today, but I haven't met him so far. You see these boots I'm wearing?
Violence, promoting violence, and has the audacity to stand in our faces and then talk about he's prime minister and that he can solve the problem. Still, you got to be crazy, you got to be a lunatic, and you got to be a serial, as I say, sociopath in the form of this man. People, we have come to the end. Of course, don't forget tomorrow morning, Andy, Mike, and myself, as we continue, of course, these and other topics. And, of course, we back here tomorrow night when, of course, I will give you all of it because the moral and ethical standard that is required to be a prime minister and to be a member of government and to serve people clearly are lacking and extremely deficient in these men and women who ought not to have been in office in the first place. What they're doing is taking our money. We're paying them under false pretense. Yes, we're paying them under false pretense, people. So, of course, I have no doubt in my mind, at the end of the day, you will come to the realization, just as I have, that they are simply toxic, that they are evil, and that they ought not to be where they are, and that Trinidad and Tobago is better off without them, and to make certain that they demit office in more ways than one. Of course,
Light of my people.
Too much of one thing, good for nothing. Too much of good thing, never enough. I don't know why my black people cannot see. No party never care about we. Every election we so devoted. How we love up the PNM. As soon as election come and go, is only problem after problem. How could we cope? Man lost their work, I ain't seeing no solution. Every time PNM come in power, it takes a toll on black man. I don't want to sound like a racist, but this is what I can see. They just take care of the race, cause they damn well know they have we. I want to ring my bell, wake up Eric Williams. Tell him the party found him, PNM needed immediate attention. Ring my bell, wake up Mother Cornhawk. Tell she to cast a spell on we party, cause it's not what it used to be. I ring my bell, ring my bell. I ring my bell down there. I ring my bell, ring my bell. I ring my bell down there. This thing is becoming out of hand. It's time this damn nonsense stop. If you don't sing a PNM song, from Skinner Park you'll be dropped. Calypsonian could have sing what they want. We were the spokesman for the people. Eric Duffy, Chambers Duncy. When Kamala drunk, how she like to pee. Calypsonian know that's no way to go. Too much happening in we country. All this killing spree, young woman bodies, but only about PNM you could sing. All them songs playing on the radio, all you singing we Kamala do. But when PNM do a wrong thing, I hear in a word from you. I want to ring me bell, wake up Mother Castle. Every Monday she preach on WAC radio, and is the biggest critic of Calypso. Ring me bell, for Patsy and Joni. I want them two cultural lovers to know, not only PNM song is Calypso. I ring my bell, ring my bell. I ring my bell down there.
settle down there. Crime will never stop in this country once black people belly empty. How could a man work in CPEP, maintain his whole family? Or you say the past regime was so bad, so much wrong thing they done to we. Now that PNM take over, white poor people going hungry. When PNM win, all African grin. Now we get back we country. All they doing is complaining and ain't doing nothing for we. The mess already made, don't sit in the shade and ponder on the problem. Get off your ass and do it fast and find a way to solve them. I want to ring my bell, wake up Randolph Burrows. Tell him among all past police commissioners, up to now is he I prefer. Ring my bell, wake up the Lord Bryna. Tell him the state of Calypso today is a good thing he passed away.
If it is the time is now that change should come about, just as how you vote them in, vote them out, register and vote them out. If they don't see, vote them out. Stain your finger and vote them out. Show them no mercy, vote them out. Vote them out with total scorn and utter disdain. Let's put our country together again. Put them out of power, dominate their reign. Let's put our country together again. If for 30 years you voting them in, and there's only tears as soon as they win, they give you big words and enslave your souls, promising you roads and giving potholes. If they are the reason why the economy goes sprout, when you're voting, vote them out, vote them out. If it is the passing laws that them alone can flout, when you're voting, vote them out, vote them out. If it is the building eyesores, east, west, north and south, the same way you vote them in, vote them out. Register and vote them out. Totally, vote them out. State your finger and vote them out. Rescue the country, vote them out. Vote them out with tempo, they have we in vain. Let's put our country together again. Put them out with Calypso.